Drop a drone into a dense forest without a pre-calculated route, and you're watching a computer try to solve a deadly math problem in real time. Every branch and shadow forces the hardware to physically stutter, burning battery while it calculates its next few feet of survival. To keep that from happening, autonomous systems rely on two distinct brains. The first is macro navigation. This is the strategic pre-flight brain. It operates entirely on static, predetermined maps to plot an optimal route before the motors ever spin up. The second brain is micronavigation. This is the tactical, in-flight system that handles real-time reflex avoidance, dodging an unexpected bird or a falling branch that wasn't on the map. But putting both of those brains on a flying machine introduces a hard physical bottleneck. You are severely limited by the compute and battery limits of onboard processors. You're often asking a chip no more powerful than a single Raspberry Pi to render and react to a three-dimensional world. This creates an absolute mathematical dilemma for systems engineers. Demanding perfect 3D path optimization requires massive computing power, which instantly drains your limited power budget. If you deploy a calculation-heavy algorithm in an environment that requires constant physical maneuvering, you guarantee either a catastrophic system crash or a totally depleted battery before the drone ever reaches its target. The classic baseline for guaranteed perfect global path planning is the A-star algorithm. A-star is a graph-based search method that explores an environment step by step. It evaluates potential routes by adding two numbers together, the exact energy and distance cost from the start, plus an estimated cost to reach the target. Look at this two-dimensional grid. A-star achieves absolute mathematical perfection by storing every single explored node in memory as it maps adjacent squares. It evaluates these stored nodes to calculate a route that never misses the most efficient physical path, that works flawlessly on a flat plane. But put A-star into a massive, unmapped dynamic space, and its advantage becomes a fatal liability. Adding altitude and complex obstacles multiplies memory requirements exponentially. Storing every point in a 3D grid creates severe storage bloat, eventually stalling the processor entirely. Grid-based searches are the optimal choice for structured, two-dimensional robotics, but for dynamic, real-world drone operations, they are a complete liability. When environments become too vast to map point by point in memory, systems engineers pivot to bio-inspired heuristics. Genetic algorithms mimic Darwinian evolution, generating massive populations of random initial flight paths. The system applies an evolutionary filter. It selects the best-performing segments, crosses them over, and mutates them, combining the best parts of failed paths to mathematically refine a single route. Calculating these generations and mutations requires immense CPU processing cost, and all of this computation must happen before the drone even takes off. You only spend that kind of compute budget when you require highly structured data yields, specifically in domains like urban LiDAR scanning and precision agriculture mapping. In agriculture, using these algorithms to pre-plan the optimization of weed-infested zones yields an 88% efficiency increase compared to uniform terrain spraying. Evolutionary optimizers are a pre-flight luxury. They guarantee maximum data yield for complex terrain, but their slow convergence makes them useless if a drone must rapidly reroute on the fly.
If the drone is navigating dense, semi-permeable terrains like forestry, the premier mathematical tool is ant colony optimization, or ACO. This topographical map visualizes the core engine of ACO. It simulates wandering agents that leave a localized pheromone matrix on successful return paths. Shorter, faster paths accumulate denser pheromones, which mathematically attracts more route options. The trade-off here is computational weight. Maintaining this complex, map-wide pheromone matrix demands high processing power, effectively crippling the drone's ability to adapt to sudden changes in real time. For expansive, low-connectivity areas like marine environments, systems switch to a high-efficiency alternative, particle swarm optimization. A flock of particles dynamically adjust their trajectories based on the best position discovered by the swarm. But this carries a danger, the local optima trap. The algorithm can commit to a merely good path and get stuck, completely ignoring the absolute best route nearby. Swarm navigators trade absolute path perfection for sheer survival. They conquer dense occlusions and disconnected environments where traditional logic breaks down. No matter how perfectly you optimize that global map, a dynamic obstacle will eventually cross the drone's path. The second that happens, the micro-navigation tools must immediately take over the compute budget. Models like YOLO can semantically label the environment, identifying a tree versus a vehicle. However, object detection requires heavy GPU processing and is highly vulnerable to motion blur if the drone maneuvers too sharply. The Kalman filter is a low-compute predictor that guesses a target's trajectory. When visual contact is lost, it uses past momentum to calculate where the object will reappear. But random, zigzagging target movements will completely break this mathematical prediction. To stop collisions, drones use optical flow. It tracks expanding pixels across the camera sensor to detect approaching obstacles, operating on extremely low computational power. The fatal weakness of optical flow is a lack of pixel variation. If a drone flies directly at a featureless, blank white wall, the pixels don't register as expanding, and the drone will crash right into it. This is why hardware integrators must strictly budget their processor load. The macro algorithm planning the flight must leave enough electrical power and chip capacity for these vital micro-reflexes to keep the hardware intact. The ultimate engineering rule for autonomous path planning is simple. Never buy compute power you don't need, and always match the mathematical heuristic to the physical topography. Let's map the baseline recommendation. For simple, static robotics operating in known environments, you trade memory capacity for guaranteed efficiency using the A-star algorithm. If your goal is maximum data yield for precision agriculture or urban scanning, you trade pre-flight computation time for highly optimized structural data using genetic algorithms. In environments with dense, semi-permeable barriers like forestry, you trade heavy processor load for the ability to weave through complexity using ant colony optimization. And for expansive areas with dropped signals, such as marine environments, you trade exact path perfection for rapid convergence and swarm survival using particle swarm optimization. No global pre-flight planner can survive the physical world without a local micro-navigation system actively guarding the hardware from real-time threats. True autonomy doesn't come from a single perfect equation. It's achieved only when global strategy and local reflex